Excel is not something many of us use on a regular basis. The assignment building a student council fundraiser spreadsheet is an assignment that frustrates many of you. My husband Philip and I are going to do a quick tutorial that will hopefully help make this assignment a little easier and more manageable. All right, so Philip, you want to take us through?
Sure. Okay, so I have gone ahead and created the spreadsheet that's shown in figure 3-60 minus a few of their details on there. So in order to create your titles and where it shows to center those over columns A through E, that's probably the most tricky thing to do. But basically what you would do, let's say if I have something I'm typing that's extremely long over here, I'll put it down here for you. So West Kentucky Community and Technical College. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these cells that entire title took up. And I'm just going to come up here to the top and I'm going to select Merge and Center. So that's going to go ahead and create one cell that is centered over all of the different columns that were taken up by the title. So that's how you're going to do that up here also. And when you're formatting your text, of course, you could do all that up here in your font menu. And then if you want to format the color of the cells in particular, you're going to right click on the cells once you've highlighted them. And then you're going to go to Format Cell. Let me find it here. There it is, Format Cells. And then you've got options here. You've got your number, you've got alignment, which is kind of where your text is centered. You've got your font. You can also change your font here. You've got your border, and then you have your fill. So your fill, you're going to be able to select whatever you want, and I think the assignment calls for a gray solid, so that would be somewhere right in here. This is your gray, your sample here, so you're going to select OK on that. And it also wants you at one point here on the second row, A through E, it wants you to go ahead and put a border around it that looks like it's thick aqua. So you would right click, select it first, right click, go to Format Cells, and you would go to your border menu here. And this is your thick. So this is the very thick border that you're seeing on there. And this entire box here is clickable, so I can select top, bottom, right, and left. And that's going to put a border around the entire block. So this entire thing will be one border. And then you can select your color here that it asks you to select and go through your standard colors and find the one that it asks for. And you're going to click OK and OK. And that puts that thick border around this. And let's see, so next is just more manipulation of that text, and that's stuff that you can easily do here or within the Format Cells tab we were just in. Now let's see, the currency format, that's another thing that's a little tricky. So when you're putting in your totals of your prices that they give you, when you select Format Cells, and what I did for mine is I went ahead, I knew all of these cells right here were all going to be currency. So I selected the entire, which is just clicking and dragging. You select the entire portion of cells, you right click, you go back to your Format Cells, and then under number, I can select what I want it to be. So I've got quite a few options, but we're just dealing with currency. So you're going to select currency and it'll show, you know, how numbers are portrayed there, and you're just going to hit OK, and that's going to change all these numbers into units of currency. So no matter what I type, I can just type 560 and hit enter. It's going to change it to currency. Okay, so now over here under our totals and down here in these totals, you can either set there by hand and you can calculate these different sums, and then you can put the total here. But what's cool about Excel is that I can take this cell here and I can highlight it if there's nothing in it. So I'm going to delete this for now. And then you can create a formula to do whatever you want. So your formula always has to start with the equals button. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be equal to, and then in this case you would hit sum, which is just adding all of the cells. Now adds all the numbers in a range of cells, so we want to, using parentheses, and this kind of tells us how we can format it, and then you can go ahead and sum all of these, and then you hit close parentheses and hit enter, and that's going to create a sum in this block of all three of these cells. So no matter what I do to change these, I can change this to 125 and hit enter. It's going to change this value every time, and I never have to mess with this again. So that's what's convenient about using the formulas for these cells, is that once you make changes, you don't have to go back and mess with this again and change it on your own. It'll change automatically. And so the same thing I did down here. For example, this cell right here is equal to the sum of B4 through B7, which is B4 here through B7. So it's adding this column of numbers. And so I went ahead and did that for all of these, and that's how I created my totals blocks. And now, last but not least, and probably the most complicated part of the entire assignment, is creating this data set and putting it into a bar graph. Everything that is created in your graphs is created by what you select. So looking at our graphs, we only want to select the before school, lunch, and after school totals, so these three columns here, and then we want the 4 different items, so we want these here. We don't want our totals, so we're not going to select those in our data. So what we're going to do is we're going to incorporate the lollipops, because that's going to be in there, down through the pencils, and then we're going to go over before school, lunch, and after school, and we're going to let go. So we've selected our data. Now we want to go up to the top and hit insert, and under insert you're going to see charts over here, and there's quite a few different charts to pick from, but ours is a bar graph. So this up here shows our bar graph menu, and we're going to select the down arrow next to it, and this gives you your options of different bar graphs. So you have a horizontal bar graph, vertical bar graphs, and those come in either 2-dimensional or 3-dimensional types. And it looks like ours shown here is a 3-dimensional bar graph. So we're going to go ahead and click 3D like this. And so one thing I failed to do, and you can see here, is it shows Series 1, Series 2, Series 3 instead of before, lunch, and after school. So we can tell right here that I failed to incorporate those into my chart. So I'm going to go back up here and I'm going to incorporate those in. And that did not work. So we're going to start from scratch. Okay. So we're going to do it this way now. There. And I haven't incorporated my totals at all, so I'm just doing this right here. Now let's try this again, see if it gets our cell information right. So we're going to go to insert, 3D column, and there we go. So it's got labeled down here just like in the figure. You've got your before school totals, your lunch totals, and your after school totals. And then you have your 4 different items and then the numbers that correspond, the currencies. So one thing I've noticed that's a difference is that my increments over here are $50 increments, while the one in the book is $100 increments. And theirs goes through $500 and mine goes through $450. So I've got some work to do over here. So I'm just going to left click and I'm going to select this data. Now I get a menu that comes up over here. So this gives me, this is a format axis menu. So I can format these numbers however I want them. So you've got a minimum to a maximum. So that's what this 0 to whatever is. So I'm going to change this 450 to 500. And that's going to go ahead and put 500 at the top. And over here it automatically selected 100 since we're at 500 versus 450. So it went ahead and changed my major units, which is the spacing between the values, to 100, which is what it shows in the book. So we're good now on our currencies. And if you want to change the chart title to reflect the Student Council fundraisers, you're just going to left click on that, and then you are going to right click and say Format Chart Title. and then we can go up here and we can select the text, we can backspace, and we can change it to whatever we want to. So student council fund raisers, and then we can select outside that. So we've changed our title, we've changed our values on our axis to the correct thing. We've got these. Now, one thing I did notice when I first made this chart and I selected my data, that down here I had 4 different colors representing the 4 items, and then my values in here, these 4 right here, were changed to 3, and it was the before school, lunch, and after school. So basically my axis were flip-flop, my data was. And all I had to do to fix that was go ahead and select my data down here using a left click. And I selected So I selected my data. Oh, just quit it. And then right click, format legend. Let's see, no, where was it? Select data. Once you hit select data, what you can easily do is hit switch row and column. So if your data is backwards from what you're seeing on the assignment, and where you should have lollipops, flowers, pizza, and pencils, you've got the 3 before school, lunch, and after school, is you just use those steps and you switch row and column, and you'll select this right here, and that's going to switch the data completely opposite to what it is, and that'll fix your issue. And then last but not least, it wants us to change the style to represent what they had in the book. I never could find the exact style, but if you click this little paintbrush over here, these are your styles that you can select from, and it'll go ahead and preview it as you scroll across those. And the only one I could find that really represented what the book had was this one closest to the bottom, which was this. And so that kind of looks like what they've got in the book. But that's your assignment, and good luck.
All right. Thanks, Philip.